to Season 1, Episode 7 of the Potomac RPG Podcast. Be sure to have your limes handy, lest you get the scurvy.
So before we get started with today's episode, I'd like you to do something. I'd like you to pause this episode and go watch the video of the hashtag BLACKAF Roundtable that happened earlier this week. The link is in the show notes. Please watch it. Watch the entire thing. Then check out some of the amazing things the guests on that roundtable have been doing. Then check out some more. And don't stop. After you've done all that, then come back here. We'll still be here and we'll get into the show proper, but it is important. It was a great roundtable and very important for us to listen to. So please do that and thank you. We're going to go get into the show right now, so let's get started. Welcome one and all to the Potomac RPG Podcast, a strange pageantry of misfits, magic, and mayhem. I'm your host and scurvy sea dog, Adam.
I am your key to Davy Jones's locker, Sarah.
And I am your boatswain with a ridiculous hat, Ben.
Thanks for being on the show, both of you. I'm pretty excited for this episode. The topic this week is going to be a bit more light and fun because we need some light and fun today. The topic is pirates. Pirates in tabletop role-playing games is such a cool thing, and it's great that it can translate to multiple genres, whether it's fantasy, historical, sci-fi, whatever. Just about anything that has a mode of transport and a crew can be turned into pirates. Now, Ben, you are currently playing a pirate in our campaign with Steve, the Descent into Avernus. What drew you to play that type of character?
Oh, pirates are just a lot of fun in general, not being bound by the rules of society, being able to go out and adventure, seeking that freedom that only pirating can give, and being able to have that roguish flair just kind of naturally from being a pirate. That's fun stuff.
Absolutely. Now, Sarah, have you ever played a pirate character before in any of your games?
I actually haven't. My exposure to pirates was really like in romance novels when I was growing up, as an adolescent. They were actually my favorite topic. I was really fascinated with like the lingo and the culture and the fact that they were kind of like the bad boys and bad girls of the sea. So I've always wanted to play one. I'm actually really excited about this topic today, but I haven't yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a cool just idea, and especially within a tabletop role-playing game, it kind of sets itself up well because, you're traveling around. There's a lot of travel and side quests and things like that, and it's kind of surprising that it's not more prevalent in RPGs. You would think that kind of setup lends itself to the types of games that we play, but it actually is hard to find a good pirate game, it seems, just from the research that we've done. So I'm looking forward to getting into some of these questions, and let's get into our first one. The first question today is from Reddit user I Don't Get the Joke, who asks, how could you play a pirate in a game of good PCs? So bear with me here. When you think pirate, you think murdering, stealing, looting, raping sea dogs, right? But think about Disney pirates. William Turner, a righteous man turned pirate only because he didn't trust the rules to help him. Not a murderer or a thief. The crew of Davy Jones only murdered people with debts and people who got in their way, I think. And Jack Sparrow was a pirate only ever in it for himself. And the only one we ever actually see him murder was resurrected in the second movie. Spoiler alert. So I don't want to play a murdering, thieving rapist, but I do want to play a pirate, someone who believes the natural order of things is wrong and just wants to be free, with maybe a few gold coins falling into his pocket occasionally. Is there a way to do this in a party of mainly good PCs without stepping on the toes of everyone with my wacky pirate shenanigans or defaulting to chaotic stupid. Now, Sarah, this looks like a question about alignment here. What do you think of this one?
I actually think it's quite possible to play good on the edge of gray, shall we say, even dipping into sort of a gray while being a pirate. If you think about it, they're kind of like highwaymen and women of the sea. And Robin Hood, right, used to steal from the rich and give to the poor. He was a highwayman who had a band of merry men. And it's kind of, you could kind of do something similar. You could also be working, like, let's say there's a, like a corrupt sort of crown or something that you're working for, and you just don't agree, like, with their moray, and you just want to go out and help people or fetch something that's going to bring them down, and this is the vehicle through which your party's going to do it. And I think one of the advantages of playing pirates is that you kind of have this built-in camaraderie that comes with it, that is you versus the sea, as well as you versus other pirates and you versus the monsters. There's a lot of different antagonists that could come into play. So I think it can be exciting and can still be good.
Yeah, and Ben's currently playing a pirate character, and most of us, I think, in the campaign are pretty good. But there are some difficulties there, just in that since the rest of the party isn't part of a crew on a ship, does that kind of get in the way of your character, Ben? Does that make things a bit more difficult?
Yeah, it has been a little difficult to find a reason for Porto to be interacting with the party. They've got to have a common goal that we've kind of had to work with, to find. And Porto is definitely in the gray area in some aspects, whereas the rest of the party is definitely less in the gray area and more in the good area. So being able to work together cohesively has been a little bit of a challenge, and that challenge has made it a very interesting character to play so far, and has made some of our interactions be conflicty and also very interesting. It's been
conflicty is a good way to put it, considering you murdered one of the PCs. That's a hell of a gray area you got there. But no, his character Porto is definitely seems, not an evil character by any stretch, but more of a conflicted character, and that kind of comes out. But portions of his private pirate life has kind of seeped in, and that's kind of cool to see. It is a little difficult because part of the whole pirate thing is the water, right? It's the seas, and we haven't gotten to experience that much, though I do think Steve did a great job with a bit of a side quest that separated you from the group and the recently deceased PC, and you guys were on a boat, and then that was pretty cool to see. I think that the difficulty there is, if you're going to play a pirate character, how much of the pirate stuff can come out if the rest of us are on land doing a city adventure,
Yeah, sometimes it's just a flavor of pirates and not real pirating that you get to do in a campaign with a bunch of other good PCs. But that's okay.
Yeah, well, and it kind of brings up a question in terms of, when people say pirate, they immediately think of, Pirates of the Caribbean or Age of Sail, stuff like that. But when it comes to playing a pirate-based game, is it really, contingent on some kind of Europe central theme in the Age of Sail and Scurvy Sea Dog kind of stuff? I mean, in my mind, a pirate can be similar to Firefly, which is in sci-fi. It's a mode of transport and a crew, and I think from there, and basically a non-lawful way, whether that's chaotic good or neutral, whatever, a non-lawful alignment, and I think that kind of fits in pirate. Like, I don't think it has to be hemmed into this certain setting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I can't justify putting the pirate label on anybody who's land-based. I mean, if you're traveling around on a couple of carts with a bunch of other like-minded chaotic individuals, I wouldn't be able to call that pirating. But in the context of star-going ships, that sounds piratey to me.
Yeah,
It's just the evolution of pirating into the future, I guess.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the transport, I mean, because the transport is key to it because it keeps the party in a centralized but mobile location. Yeah, so if you think of Firefly as a ship that has, all these individuals on and all the conflicts and drama that come out of that, whereas if it was like, here's a question for you. What if it was, let's say we were doing some kind of Mad Max style thing or something like that, and it was one giant land-based transport that had a crew. Would it be possible to play a pirate type game with that?
Oh, that sounds like I would consider that to be pirating. I also just came to my mind, maybe in the D&D context, you could have an airship with pirates on it.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You kidding me? Yeah. I think and unfortunately, I'm sure either Steve or Matt know this, but I know something came out for airships in the D&D world. I can't remember what the module was or the adventure or something like that.
It was Space Jammer, wasn't it?
Was it or Spelljammer?
Or Spelljammer, yeah, Spelljammer.
Space Jam was great though. I liked Space Jam.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it doesn't have to be 17th century on the high seas kind of stuff. It's I think it really is based on not having a. Well, what about story arcs? There's an idea. And a lot of times piracy is geared around a lot of side quests. You're smuggling this or you're taking care of that or you're earning coin by doing this. What's your view on time in terms of long-term arcs or stories like that? Do you think that still fits within the piracy theme?
I do.
Yeah.
I think if you're if you're a pirate, right, part of, like we said, is transporting goods, whether you just stole them or you're smuggling them, but you have to be able to offload them and fence them. So you're going to have dealings on land. You're also going to have to maybe deal with different factions on land with, different political agendas. Whether it's a company owned, like the East India Trading Company from Pirates of the Caribbean, or if it's a crown based, or maybe it's just another rival pirate group who's going to come after you, or someone building like a fleet. Like there's all sorts of different things that would come into play in that. But I definitely think that you would have to be offline at least long enough to engage with these people, sell things, learn about new opportunities, that sort of thing. So
yeah, I mean the ship or transport, whatever, is your haven, and it almost it acts as a mobile base for you, which I think is another cool aspect of it, is that you always kind of have a home to come back to without traveling to it because you're always on it. And I remember in season 1 in Anthony's game, the time that we spent on a ship, even though we weren't a pirate crew, it felt rather similar to that. We had this ship that we were traveling on and all the adventures that come along the way, and just to kind of bring it back to the original character, I don't aside from maybe not being lawful, but even that, like, maybe you're on this, pirate ship for a different reason other than being a pirate. If I think, and I hate to keep bringing up Firefly, but it was, obviously amazing and should have come back.
Yes.
But you had the Doctor on there, who was definitely a lawful character, aside from, the situation with River and all that. But, he definitely did not, or the pastor guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but always advising against the bad actions. You can play that kind of role in a pirate setting. It doesn't have to be a murdering and stealing, kind of thing. so long as there's a purpose for you being on this ship, a way that you fit within the crew, either as a passenger or a crew member, and the adventures that come with it. So don't worry about what your alignment is. Play what you want. You can make it fit.
Yeah, so I think there's a historical precedent for people of good leaning to actually be conscripted into military service by the kingdom's lord, get paid at the start of their voyage half of their wages, and then jump ship to any crew that would take them to make some extra money, just because they've got a family back home that they've got to feed, and half of their wages isn't going to do it. So
yeah,
there are a lot of reasons why you could be on a pirate ship that don't mean you are really into pillaging and killing people. Maybe
Absolutely.
It's because you've got somebody that you need to take care of.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it, and certainly a lot of different storylines that could come out of something like that, a situation that's set up like that. So, hopefully that helps. I don't get the joke in terms of being okay with being in a good aligned party, because you can be any alignment you really want, so long as you're willing to break the law once in a while. So hope that helps.
I have news here.
And the sound of Ralphie, the news goblin, can mean only one thing. It is time for Potomac RPG News. All right, so there's a new Kickstarter out right now that's pretty interesting. It's called Role, R-O-L-E, a new kind of platform for the RPG community. This looks great. It centers on 3 different core features that they mentioned in their intro video. A marketplace that has all the games you could ever want, and it looks like it belongs. It's not just thrown in there, it looks like it's part of this platform. The second and probably most interesting one is the matchmaking feature, which kind of acts like a dating site where it tries to match you with other people who are looking for the same type of game that you are, which I think is something lacking in a lot of different other online platforms. And then lastly, the online play tool, which tries to simulate the tabletop experience with the video conferencing and the character sheets and all that kind of stuff. The layout looks pretty fantastic here. Ben, after looking through this, what are your thoughts on Roll?
Yeah, it looks like a great product. The matchmaking aspect of it really jumped out at me, and the focus that they've got on including new players and a diversity of player and making them feel comfortable role playing with other people that they might role play with once or twice, get to know a little bit, and maybe look for another match afterwards when they realize that they're not in the gaming into the same gaming experience, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and just to jump off of that, I love the matchmaking feature. I think that there's a lot of introverts who play D&D and who may be hesitant to meet a bunch of people in the flesh for the first time, not knowing what the environment might be like, who's going to be there, what the personalities are going to be, and to be able to connect with these people who have already been filtered in a way for what they enjoy is a great thing. And then to just be safely at home when you meet them, I think just kind of makes that a safer environment for everyone. Not that I feel like anyone's going, to have a problem with D&D, but meetups. But sometimes people can be a little bit more aggressive. Like I think was it Tom who was talking about how when he was doing a Magic the Gathering, like they were way more aggressive, but the D&D group tend to be very welcoming and stuff. And and so I think to be able to avoid some of that strangeness would help, and to be able to peace out if you're not comfortable is also a great solution.
Yeah, I mean, like everything I've seen on it, I mean, it looks amazing, and I hope it's something that takes off, because when it comes to those online RPG platforms, I got to admit, I mean, we talked about it last week with digital carpentry. It's kind of hard to find something that really works, and how many looking for group message boards or subreddits or whatever are out there, and people are constantly complaining that they can't find the type of group that they want. So this looks like it's able to pare down a little bit more and get to the crux of what a player is searching for and match them. Now, that also requires a user base that's big enough for that matchmaking to work, though. There can be a lot of problems where, if you don't have enough players, then it's really hard to find a good match,
Yeah, but I think one of the best things about this particular about Roll is the fact that it supports so many types of games. Like it's a place where you can be a creator and have your games on there, and then you can also like hook up with people. But the final solution that they came up with, and I really love this as a UX designer, is one where you can meet people and flex the mechanics to suit the game that you're playing. So those of us who have been stuck at home with like COVID-19, we've come up with hacks like with Zoom or Discord or Slack or, other avenues to try and make those broadcasting solutions work for us. And what they're doing is making it so that it works for you, and with very minimal effort on your end. And I think that is brilliant. And I do think it will lead to some adoption. But you're right, the number of people we get to play will be important. But I feel like because of the breadth of games and the fact that we tend to adopt new innovations based on what people that we tend to, like a group that we tend to belong to is doing, I think that you might see it rapidly pick up if it starts to get any buzz. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is if this takes off, this could be great. I'm just scrolling through it right now and looking again at the screenshots of the table, and it's kind of, we use Zoom a lot right now along with Miro and to do this. It looks very slick. It looks like the way that you would want it to look like if you're playing a TTRPG online. It doesn't have many pictures of like things like battle maps and stuff like that, so I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I'm pretty confident that just from these screenshots that this is going to be great.
I immediately backed it as soon as I started. This is the first time where some of the stuff we've been talking about, which has been, attractive, or, maybe there's some uncertainty from Kickstarter. This one, I was like, yes, please sign me up immediately.
Yeah. Ben, does this kind of tickle your fancy a little?
Yeah, it does. One other thing that we didn't really talk much about is they seem to be actively courting content creators. They're trying to make it as easy as possible to have people create content specifically for this platform, bring in their own content that they've already made, and kind of holding everybody's hand to get the platform to work for the content creators as well. That if that works out really nicely, that could make this a really interesting platform.
Yeah.
Sorry, my printer's going.
Are you printing out the latest drive-through RPG purchase?
No,
No, just to kind of bring this back, like, I know it doesn't seem to fit with our theme today, but in a way, I think it does, because if you are looking for a pirate-themed game, it's going to be pretty hard to track that down quickly. You're going to have to do a lot of scrolling and searching in different areas, especially since it's not dependent on one type of system. So that it might take you a while to find something like that. But if this matchmaking feature works the way that they say it's going to work, boy, how handy is that? Saying, hey, I want to play a pirate game, and it'll give you plenty of options there. That's the hope, is when you can drill down to things specific like that, instead of these broad terms like, oh, well, we're going to play a D&D game and it's going to be a long-term campaign that's RP heavy. Well, that's all well and good, but that doesn't drill into exactly what kind of game this is going to be. And hopefully that matchmaking feature on this will help people do that. So if you are interested, you got about 10 days left until the close of this Kickstarter. Sarah, you've already backed it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to back it here as well. Ben, I don't know if you do Kickstarter or not, but
I do not do Kickstarters, no.
But you'll be looking at it when it comes to official release, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it looks pretty amazing. So
it really does. So check it out. It's on Kickstarter right now. We're going to step out for a moment, but we will be back right after the break. Let me tell you a little bit about Found Familiar. They have some of the absolute best coffee around, and it caters to people just like us, people who love D&D. So try some today. You won't be disappointed. If you're looking for a recommendation, try their regular Knoll Modern Espresso. No trouble perking up at the table after drinking this stuff. Enter the coupon code Potomac RPG, all one word, at checkout and get yourself a 10% discount as well. That's foundfamiliar.com. And with that, let's get back to the show. How about another question? This one comes from Reddit user Slagtepper, I think that's how you pronounce it, who asks, what to do on a pirate island / harbor? So my current D&D campaign is centered pretty heavily around pirates and chasing down a specific crew of pirates. Last session, my players made it to the Hidden Pirate Island, a secret community where pirate ships and their stolen goods, have their stolen goods and sell it to make a profit. Think Tortuga in the Pirates of the Caribbean. So now that they're here and I want to make some cool, exciting side quests or events available to them, but I find myself at a loss. What could be some cool hooks or exciting stuff to go explore or look for in a city full of pirates and general debauchery? The island itself is a volcanic island, so some stuff going on inside of and around the volcano is definitely a possibility. Hope you guys can help me out. Now, Sarah, you always are known for some fun things to do, side quests, whatnot, that kind of stuff. What advice can you give Slagtepper?
Yeah, I would definitely advise Slagtepper to take advantage of the fact that you are in a port city and all the ways in which that could either come back to haunt some of your crew members, like from an old flame or an old grudge. I know you're chasing down a crew, but is there a rival gang? Is someone wanted by the law? Are all of you? Is there a faction or some sort of like crown or something that you're trying to, escape? Is there a spy following you? Like, there's a lot of different things that you could bring in just from like a role play aspect. Is there a duel of some sort? Is there a chance for a card game where you have to wager your ship to get what you want? And then of course, what happens if you lose your ship? You got to go hijack it back. Yeah, like there's a lot of opportunity there just to explore that little city, and even just some one-off quests with either like natives or a competition with other crew members and salty dogs that you could get involved with. So
absolutely. Ben, what kind of ideas you got for this?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the good old-fashioned treasure hunt. Pirates, they love their treasure, and their maps with a X marks the spot on it. So give your party a treasure map that comes from a mysterious source and let them track that down. Put some dangerous sea creatures in between them and their treasure, and you've got yourself a 2 or 3 night arc. The other thing that immediately comes to mind is that pirate captains have just got massive egos, and anything that you can do to show their rivalries or how much they need to have unique things, and they want to have the best that exists, whether it's unique items or the best ship that one of their rivals or the kingdom's navy has, that they want to go capture that. That sounds like a couple nights of adventure as well.
Yeah, I mean, there really is no limit here. Like, I don't see a pirate island as being confining in any way. Like, this opens the door to so many things, not only plot points, but types of encounters or scenarios that you can run. I mean, it's very easy to run things like chase scenes or race scenes, for that matter. You can do political intrigue. You can do pretty much anything when it comes to this type of setting. It opens the door to some not so lawful good kind of things, because you're on a private island, as you mentioned, Ben, with competitions between rivals. I mean, there's going to be rivals like crazy. Also, in terms of the merchant aspect, the selling and buying of goods, you should be able to find things that you wouldn't be able to find in an upstanding city. So things like that. I mean, the door is just wide open with this one. Like, this should not cause too much trouble in terms of finding a decent side quest.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I would even say, think about ways in which it might look like it's going one way for your party, and then do a twist. Like, maybe a group is hiring some ships to kind of help them go after something, but halfway through you find out actually you're the sacrifice so that they can get an object. And maybe not only do you have to fight the monsters or whatever that you were going to be sacrificed to, you have to go and obviously get this object from this other crew and make them pay, of course, for betraying you, if that's your salty behavior, I guess.
Absolutely.
So some DMs also kind of vamp off of unique monsters, and there's a tremendous number of really cool sea monsters and aquatic creatures that you can build off of: sea hags, dragon turtles, krakens, anything that's mysterious and has got tentacles, giant sharks and whales. That you can build a cool Moby Dick style campaign around chasing a giant whale or sea dragon.
Yeah, the door's wide open. And honestly, what I'd be more worried about isn't trying to figure out side quests and things that they can do. The real worry is, are you ever going to get them to leave? Because if I were in this game and we just stumbled upon this, I might never want to go back to the main quest myself.
Yeah, I would love this setting for sure, just to explore it.
So,
the freedom of the sea.
Exactly. So hopefully that helps out a little bit, Slagtubber. Hope you found some neat side quests for your party to go on, and they're enjoying it immensely. With that said, we're going to get into another segment here. We did this last week. We're going to do it again today. A pirate campaign sounds all well and good, but it gets a little tougher in practice. So let's crank up the big brain power here and figure out what to do. Listeners, it's time for Let's Build Something. Welcome to Let's Build Something, where we get to put our creativity to the test and build something live on air for all the world to hear. In this week's segment, we're going to build ourselves a pirate campaign, replete with all the fixins that makes a pirate campaign fun. So here's how it'll work. We're going to roll some game traits, setting, players, systems, that kind of thing. Then we're going to build a pirate campaign around those traits. So, you two ready?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's get into it. All right, so guys, go ahead and pull out 2 D4s, and that will help us kind of set up the game traits that we're going to have here. Ben, why don't you go ahead and roll first?
Okay. So 2 and a 4.
2 and a 4, okay. And Sarah, you roll.
4 and a 4.
Okay. All right. So the type of game that we're going to do is going to be a fantasy. Fantasy is a setting here. That was the first roll. And it's going to be a group of newbies. So not people who are too familiar with TTRPGs. The type of game is going to be a mix of long story arc and mini adventures. And then the mechanics are going to be mostly narrative based. So this is going to be a bit of a challenge here. So let's start with this kind of fantasy setting. So that's probably the easiest one to tackle here. Where do you guys see this pirate campaign taking place?
Sword Coast is the pretty classical in Faerunian D&D. There's lots of ways that you can integrate a pirate ship into there. There's like a 2E supplement that was released a long time ago, where they had a pirates in I think it's called the Lost Isles, Pirates of the Lost Isles. That could be you could pick that up on DM's Guild for like $10, and they've got a ton of material in there.
Sure.
Any place that's connected to the sea could have pirates.
Yeah. And especially, if you're looking at Sword Coast, if that's something that's like easiest to kind of, get a group of new players around, the Sword Coast has a ton of different stuff going on. So that's certainly a good place. Sarah, what do you think in terms of setting in a fantasy setting here? Where are you looking for this to take place? Can we build off this Sword Coast area a bit?
So since our target audience are new players, I don't want to jump on the bandwagon, but I definitely agree. Sword Coast would be a great sort of intro level location to introduce these, like the pirating sort of motif, and still have access to like some of the politics and stuff that would be sort of low hanging fruit for them to learn if they got really excited and wanted to do some reading on their own. So you could play off of that existing knowledge. If we were to kind of get away from that, so I can have a different answer than
Sure,
Ben.
go for it.
I would absolutely kind of love for there to be more of like a pirate in a very, very hostile sort of area, because they also then have value to the people there. Maybe they are unlawful, but they would definitely be necessary for getting letters out or smuggling in certain imported goods. And they'd almost be heroes in some ways without actually being a hero, because they're helping like maybe a small city that's been stranded or cut off from the trade routes that they used to have. And I think that'd be a lot of fun, especially if like they were cut off for a reason, and that particular sort of like the crown or something doesn't want these pirates getting through. So that would be a great way for like our first question. If they wanted to be the good guys, that would be a great setting to be a good guy. You're helping people, and then also you're thwarting the crown's attempts to kind of let this sort of small civilization die out. And they might also have people also in that civilization who want to help foment sort of, distrust and all that. But and I think it would be a great way to introduce newbies to, like the monsters of the sea in like that sort of setting. But I would like it hostile.
So what comes to mind for this is maybe having a setting with some small islands or something that are away from the larger kingdom and really don't have the resources to be completely autonomous. that could be a nice setting where they're dependent on trade and or smuggling, that only pirates can accomplish. And one of the things that your description brought to my mind about the danger of some of these locations that you would want in your campaign is the myths and legends from early European history of when they were seagoing, and they thought that anywhere as you went closer to the bottom of the world, the seas would get hotter and hotter and boil, and things would get lit on fire, and that could actually happen in a D&D setting, if your world would allow it. That could be interesting. Boiling seas are, it doesn't get more dangerous than that, right?
No,
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't. And another option, if you're still looking at this kind of setting, but you don't want to, kind of homebrew your own stuff, D&D had Ghosts of Saltmarsh come out last year, which is all about this kind of stuff. It was a self-contained adventure on the high seas. So if you're looking for something D&D based, that takes place, that already is written out and has a setting in place, Ghost of Saltmarsh is out there and has ship-to-ship combat and all that kind of stuff. That definitely worth checking out. Now, if we look at the complexity side with newbies, how do we approach this game so that a newbie doesn't either tune out or get too confused?
I think that you need to onboard them very, very simply with like, if there's going to be intrigue, like within the islands, like maybe there's some different tribes on different islands and they maybe have their own cultures and stuff, and some conflict as well, even though you're helping them. Start with one tribe. Don't let them discover, what other tribes are doing or working against right away. Just let them get comfortable with the character and just kind of see a glimpse of the politics just within that island. And then if you want to onboard them, like maybe with their characters a bit, what their characters are capable of, you could start with a small monster, either that appears on the ship or something, or from something that they picked up. I think that way it's located in a familiar place, that they're kind of starting to learn what the ship's layout is. And you could actually use this monster to kind of show them the ship's layout and get them more comfortable with what's going to become their home base for the pretty much most of the campaign. Because like you said, it's like a floating home base, which is awesome.
That's a really great idea, sir.
Yeah. And then they can get used to their magic there. And also, what goes wrong? Like if someone starts to produce flame and throw it, you might not want to do that on your ship. But yeah, but this is a safe place for them to learn both the good and the bad of what their characters can do.
That's a really interesting twist on the classical D&D start, where you start with a village or a small town or a tavern, and then you build it out from there. That's the seagoing equivalent. Your tavern is now the mess hall of a ship, or a small island is your starting village.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea, and it kind of keeps it in terms and ideas that a newbie can understand. So, most people have seen Pirates of the Caribbean. Most people, are aware of, kind of stories from history of pirates. So it's really easy for them to understand concepts like a sea creature or a pirate island or something like that. So it's a little easier, I think, to introduce new players to the concepts of a game through this setting. So I think it kind of knocks that out of the park. Now, with the type of game with a mix of long-term arcs and short-term arcs, Sarah, I think you kind of hit on things right there. The idea of using immediate, smaller-based things to introduce mechanics, to introduce storyline without it getting too big too quickly is brilliant. But what about that long-term arc? What are some ideas of a long-term arc story?
I think you need a threat, an outside threat for the characters to realize is a problem and to start working towards resolving, whether it's a big bad evil guy, or it's some force of nature, or magic, or I mean, maybe the sea is rising up against these islands, or they need to throw off the shackles of the kingdom that's trying to keep them down. Or maybe there's another pirate that is pillaging these islands, and they need to take down that pirate.
So when it comes to the mix of long and short arcs, and you're bringing in these small things, but a long-term arc that would make sense narratively sounds a bit more political intrigue, or the machinations of different rivals and stuff like that, instead of simply a long-term arc of, the world's going to end and you have to do whatever, or you have to go fight a bunch of things. If for it to be on the narrative front, it seems like it's going to be more along the lines of the political intrigue aspect.
Magical climate change doesn't sound good for you.
that works too.
I think it would have to come back to, why did these people want these islands cut off? What was that reason? And if halfway through the campaign the group was to find out that they were actually enabling something that maybe the crown was trying to shut down, and now they have to take care of it because they've made it worse, that both becomes the responsibility, they kind of made it worse, and also their responsibility to kind of take care of it and save the day. What is it about these islands that are so important? What's in that volcano or those marshlands that people just want quelled? And
some natural resource or something.
Yeah, or is it an unnatural resource? But maybe you don't know that when you start out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that.
The island is the source of some giant deadly mosquitoes, or
no, not that. No.
Well, yeah, and when it comes to settings or systems that we've kind of centered in on D&D just because it is kind of the more popular one, but there are a lot of narrative-based systems out there that would still fit with this. Things like 7th Sea is a big one. Even a PBTA would fit pretty comfortably into a narrative-based pirate game. So there's some different options, but I think in terms of narrative, in terms of gameplay, rather than combat heavy or mechanics heavy, you can still do that within D&D. It's just a matter of how you pose the issues that are coming upon the crew and how they deal with it, to make it more about kind of changing what's going on around you, rather than I swing with my axe and do 10 damage.
Yeah.
So, well, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm ready to play, and yeah, I'd love to play a pirate campaign. It sounds like a lot of fun, and especially the one that you get. Why? What do you mean? Why? Who doesn't want to be a pirate?
Yeah, but why? What is the appeal about a pirate for you, Adam? What would it provide for you that maybe in the village or wandering the coast or the forest or a mountain would not?
Well, when you think about being a pirate in a campaign, it is synonymous with freedom, in the sense of you're kind of outside the bounds of any rules. You make your own rules, and all the things that come along with that. I think as a player, it opens the door to kind of what we just talked about with the mix of long and short-term arcs. It is completely possible to do a quick one-session side quest that's supremely fun. I think it adds to drama because you have people together in one place, kind of trapped and confined, that they can't just walk away because there is nowhere to walk away to. So I think it adds to the interpersonal conflicts that characters can have. And, it just sounds fun. There's so much that can happen, and it's unpredictable. But that you're going to have a good time with it. And that's why I would want to play something like that. But what about you guys?
I like what you're saying about how you're all trapped on a ship with the conflicts. A good DM could use that. It's like a little pressure cooker where everything just boils up to the surface, and you've got to address it. Or I don't know, the ship goes down. There's a mutiny. Um, Everybody starves, gets scurvy, all their teeth fall out. Really bad things happen at sea.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that the pressure cooker point is actually really, really salient, because regardless of how bad it gets between group members, you still have to work together or you all go down. So if a monster, is attacking from the outside, you still have to work together, because there is no place to go. Like you said, you can't just walk away or ride your horse back to the city, or, whatever. You have to make sure that the ship survives, or else nobody survives. So even if people are at each other's throats, they're still going to have to work down to batten down those hatches.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
Yeah, great ideas from both of you. Let's get into our last post of the week. This comes from Reddit user Benabula, who asks, any RPGs that are good for pirates in Age of Plunder settings? Maybe it's because I've been playing Pillars of Eternity too, but I quite like the idea of playing or running an RPG that has some cool mechanics for being a pirate in an Age of Plunder setting. Something with ship combat, maintenance mechanics, etc. I'm sure some of these could be homebrewed in other systems. I'm just wondering if there's one with explicit rules for it. Ben, let's turn to you first on here. Are there any tabletop role-playing games out there that you would recommend for a pirate game?
I firmly believe that pirating isn't a mechanic, it's a way of life, and that any RPG system can be used to run your pirate campaign. Not everyone has ship-to-ship combat mechanics, but I'm sure that there are enough interested people in pirate campaigns and ship-to-ship combat that the internet will fill that void for you. Adam, is there ship-to-ship combat mechanics in the Ghost of Saltmarsh campaign supplement?
There's specified rules for ship-to-ship combat, and I haven't been able to play Ghost of Saltmarsh campaign yet, but I have read through some of it and looks interesting. I mean, one thing when it comes to ship-to-ship combat, it's kind of it's kind of a white whale, if you will, because a lot of systems try it, and that it's just not very good. And one of the reasons is you have to find a role for each person to play within a ship-to-ship combat for it to be interesting. So let's say, for example, it was sci-fi and you were on a ship in space. Well, and you have a pilot. Okay, well, what are the rest of the crew doing during this ship-to-ship combat that makes it fun for them as well? And that's one of the issues with ship-to-ship, is that usually it's only one or two people who are controlling what's going on with it, or it's a group decision where some kind of stand out as leaders and others kind of fall back as followers. So it's a dicey situation that can get out of hand quick with ship-to-ship combat in terms of who's controlling it and what can everyone else do while that ship-to-ship combat is taking place, because it's pretty boring if you're taking care of the rigging or something, and you don't have anything to do while cannons are going off or ballistas are being shot or space lasers are hitting your hull, stuff like that. But there's ways to do it. I mean, if you think in those terms, if you get hit, is there someone who's going to be working on fixing it? But how do you make that fun? It's not just like, okay, I'm going to fix this. Okay, roll for whatever to see if you fix it. Okay, I fixed it. Well, was that fun? I don't know, maybe for some people, but I think the idea of ship-to-ship combat can be a bit more broader, or dealt with in a broad way, and drive it towards getting out of the ship fires and this other ship fires back, and get it more to where those people can interact and do stuff, either against an enemy or working to solve an issue that's a bit more enjoyable than sitting back and watching two ships fight.
Yeah, that's a great point.
What about you, Sarah, with, are you married to a system when it comes to pirate type campaigns?
To be honest, I'm not familiar with all the campaigns out there enough to say, well, I'd be married to one. So no, I'm not. But I do agree. I think that the pirating, you're right. Ship to ship mechanics would definitely need to be defined, and it's probably more for players using a ship against another player who's running a ship rather than everyone on a ship, unless you're at the boarding stage. Otherwise, it's probably not going to be fun for people. But I do believe that what Ben said is appropriate. Like, it isn't a mechanic. You should be able to bring pirates into almost every campaign where there's some water. You could probably even do it with is it vampire? What is the I don't know, it's escaping me right now. The vampire one,
Vampire
right?
the Masquerade?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't remember that. But yeah, there's still water, like, around London or wherever things are located, and you could probably, like, get something going out there. It may not be the most supportive of that particular environment. It might just need to be a one-off, but you could still get some pirating going. I don't know, Ben. Do you think you could take it further with Vampire the Masquerade?
I'm not that familiar with the system.
I'm trying to picture in my head vampire pirates, and I gotta admit, when you first said vampire for piracy, I was like, I'm not seeing that. Now that I think about it, that'd be pretty damn cool to have some vampire pirates running around. I mean, that's piqued my interest a little bit, I gotta admit.
they definitely would have to be, I don't know, sheltered from the sun, which would be pretty difficult, or have a cloud around them.
Gotta wait for a cloudy day to do all your stuff. Oh, that's funny. Well, yeah, I agree with Ben, though, in terms of it's not really system dependent, and even ones that are written specifically for a pirate setting, I don't think it's based on that. It's really, can your DM make the adventure and the locations fit the type of theme that you want? It really doesn't matter what system that you're using, at least as far as we've seen. I mean, I could totally be wrong. There could be something out there, but even of 7th Sea, which is specifically geared towards this kind of Eurocentric fantasy or historical fantasy, very narrative based game, it doesn't have to be that. There's plenty of people who can't stand 7th Sea for those reasons and would rather play a pirate setting in something like D&D. So it's really whatever you're most comfortable with system wise, and then introducing the thematic elements to it. So good luck, Reddit user Benabula. Hope you found something that fits what you want. But with that, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Remember, if you want to send in your questions or anything you find on the internet, you can send them to questions@PotomacRPG.com. And you can also follow us at Potomac_RPG on Twitter and at Potomac RPG, all one word, on Instagram and YouTube. Big thanks to Sarah and Ben for being on the show. Had a great time, and thank you to the rest of the Potomac RPG crew, and of course, all of our wonderful listeners out there. So for the Potomac RPG Podcast, I'm Adam.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Ben.
Till next time, keep those dice rolling, keep those stories coming, and
never
stop playing.
Was that piratey enough? I don't even know where I left off, so I'm just gonna start. Yeah.